This project is called PhotoRequestsFromSolitary. It came out of the campaign called Tam's Year 10, which was after Tam's, a notorious state-of-the-art solitary confinement prison, had been open in Illinois for 10 years, and nothing had been done about it. PhotoRequestsFromSolitary was one part of that larger campaign to advocate to close it.
I'm an artist and a policy advocate, and I call the form of art that I work on legislative art. And that's because the goal of the art is policy change. A group of artists and I all together started the TAMS Poetry Committee. And so we sent poetry and letters to every single man in TAMS Supermax prison. TAMS Supermax is a prison that was designed for sensory deprivation. Us sending poetry and letters was a way to give the men there some social contact. Of course, when we got letters from the men, we cataloged the problems they were having. What, happened pretty quickly is that a lot of the men said, hey, if you're going to make the effort to send us poetry, why don't you tell the governor what they're doing to us down here? So in 2008, we launched a legislative campaign. These men who were supposed to be there for 1 year, many of them had been there the entire decade. And so we were posing the question, what are you doing? What are we going to do with this prison? You cannot keep people in continuous solitary confinement, and you have no plan. So we have people come to these letter writing meetings, and one of the people was a photographer, and she said, I'd like to send photos to these guys. The fact is, if you send a photo to someone, they have to give up another photo. I mean, just like these guys are allowed magazines, they're allowed books, but they don't get them. Nobody sends them to them, and they don't have any money. A lot of these guys are indigent. So I said, why don't we ask them what they want a photo of? A lot of the requests seem pretty humble, like this arch in the back of the yard's neighborhood that I used to play on as a kid, or this intersection,
And specific places too. Often, like there's a request up that's at Flatbush Junction. I just want to see the shops that are at Flatbush Junction. Family is a big one too, or like some representation of people that look like their family, like a family at a lake with like a dark hair, light skin, like a mother, a grandmother, and 2 kids.
People ask me a lot how many requests we had for porn. We had one request that was this woman who has a website of people with really big butts, and he knew this one person on that site, and he was like, I want a picture of her and her big butt. And then there was Jennifer Lopez's butt, which a lot of people commented on as they went through the container, that they remember that video with her butt. So apparently this is a common American memory.
I'd say about half of them are constructing a kind of fantasy.
A lot of guys ask for photos of themselves in some way. Most prisons have most prisoners online, so they wanted us to take their photo off the website and put them in a new scenario. A few guys sent us photos of their family members and wanted those put in new photos. One guy's mother had recently died, and he wanted a photograph of her in front of a mansion with money and a Hummer. A lot of us, me included, sometimes find the requests themselves just to be fascinating to read and look at, because you are reading an image that's in somebody else's mind that they put on paper, and then it reappears in your mind.
There's a request up right now where it feels like a Hieronymus Bosch request. He's written on a piece of paper sort of spatially where things should be happening. It reminds me of what would be a Bosch painting in the end. And it's this thing about angels and devils, in these, but in a prison yard or in that kind of situation. I think it's kind of brilliant.
And it's kind of amazing. They wanted to sort of witness what he couldn't witness. A lot of these guys have been in prison, 20 or 30 years. They've missed out on a generation of imagery that we've all been saturated by.
The irony of this entire project is that we live in an image-saturated culture where we're trying to figure out what to do about that, right? Yet at the same time, we're talking about a population of people who have access to no image or no visuality whatsoever.
And I do think the money and the mansion and the Hummer, has been kind of a meme photograph. But I think part of the reason it's been popular is the way it looks. but also because it's a concept that has heart. And I think these are really special memes for that reason. Many of the people sent in solitary confinement are people who are already seriously mentally ill. And that's because people who are seriously mentally ill have trouble following rules in prison, and they break down in prison, and they're often not treated, and so they will start to throw feces, smear feces, throw urine, so they're more likely to go into segregation, and then they break down even more because of the segregation, and they're the people who end up in supermax prison. Some of the guys with really sad requests and, they didn't seem to have it together, some of our guys have schizophrenia and other mental illnesses, and they, that's why. And their time in Supermax is just adding torture to a serious mental illness. We human beings evolved to be in relationship with other people. And we use each other for reaction, to have interactions with other people and to see other people and to have sensory stimulation. And so when that goes away, people no longer have reference points. Some people develop a lot of rage and anger, not be able to concentrate anymore, not even be able to read anymore, have insomnia, sleep all day. Some would start having hallucinations. I mean, it does not help the prison system to put people in solitary.
In 1987, I took the life of a man without just cause, committing an act so monumentally wrong that I could not have argued that it was unfair if I had been required to pay with my own life. What nobody knew or suspected back then was that I would begin suffering a punishment that I am convinced, beyond all doubt, is far worse than any death sentence could possibly have been. The box is a place like no other place on planet Earth. It's a place where men full of rage can stand at their cell gates fulminating on the neighbor, or neighbors yelling and screaming and speaking some of the filthiest words that could ever come out of a human mouth. Last year, I finished my 25th consecutive year in solitary confinement. Life in the box is about an austere sameness that makes it difficult to tell one day from 1,000 others. The world turns, technology advances, and things in the street change and keep changing all the time. Not so in solitary confinement. I've never seen a cell phone except in pictures, in magazines. I've never touched a computer in my life, never been on the internet, wouldn't know how to get there if you sat me in front of a computer. And I can honestly say that there's not a single thing I see looking around right now that is different from what I saw when I first arrived. There is always the mystery. If you manage to escape it yourself for a time, there will be plenty around and others for you to sense. And though you'll be unable to look into their eyes and see it, you might hear it in the nighttime when tough guys cry not so tough tears. I've seen minds slipping down the slope of sanity, descending into insanity, and I've been terrified that I would end up like the guys around me that have cracked and become nuts. Sometimes the prison guards find them hanging and blue. Sometimes their necks get broken when they jump from their bed. I felt like I was on an island surrounded by vicious sharks, flanked on both sides by mentally ill inmates who would splash their excrement all over the cells, all over the company outside their cells, and even all over themselves. I have went days into weeks that seemed like they'd never end, without being able to sleep more than short snatches before I was shot out of my dreams and thrown back into a living nightmare by the screams of sick men who have lost all ability to control themselves, or by the banging of cell bars and walls of these same madmen. I have been so exhausted physically, mental strength being tested to limits that cause strong folks to snap. It's a sad thing to watch a human being go insane before your eyes because he can't handle the pressure that the box exerts on the mind. But it's sadder still to see the spirit shaken from the soul, and it is more disastrous.
We have to come up with all kinds of solutions and ways of thinking, and that it can be it can be creative, it can be critical, it can be advocacy, that there is that potential.
After about 17 months, Governor Quinn hired a new chief of corrections, basically reviewing the Supermax and creating a reform plan.
I think that there are creative solutions to critical problems, right? So this is one of these cases, and that's not fixed, and that's what creativity is, right? Is that you find solutions that function.
Last year in 2012, Governor Quinn announced that he was going to try to close TAM's Supermax. So that created a huge fight with the guards union and downstate legislators that we fought all last year. And this January, Governor Quinn closed the prison.
I don't know that it's about visuality. There's no way to make the experience of solitary confinement better through visuality. I think how you can make it better is to not have any solitary confinement whatsoever. It's important for us to think about and do something about the system that we perpetuate, and that it's a part of ethics and citizenry to do something about it. So. Hit me with the art questions.